Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. We continue our reading from the 40 principles of the religion, Al-Arba fi Usul al-Din by Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahullah. ونفعنا بعلوم في الدارين. And we began reading the third principle. Third principle practically means the 13th, really, in terms of number. And that's fasting. And to connect really the dots, really what we have read thus far, and because we did not really read much of the entry on fasting, so we'll just start from the beginning. Allah's Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, every good deed is rewarded with 10 of its like, multiplied by up to 700, except fasting. For verily it is for me, and I reward it directly. So this part is this is Hadith Qudsi, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking here. We have such narratives in the Quran in terms of the in grammatically we say first person singular. It is known really common knowledge to Muslims that a good deed could be multiplied by 10 folds, and of course to 700 folds. This is really the there's a verse in the Quran after really the after Ayat al-Kursi we have 3 verses. We have practically 5 verses. We have 3 verses about Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam with the Namrud, separated by a verse about the person who passed by a village, and he asked how come how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will resurrect them, and he died for 100. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused him to die for 100 years, and then he resurrected him, and his food was still intact. He asked to look at his how he's going to resurrect the bones of the donkey at any rate. Then we have a verse of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show him how he revives, how he resurrects the dead, the story of the 4 bears, and how he would call them, of course, by leave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we have a verse that speaks about multiplying good deeds 700 folds, even more. مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت 7 سنابل في كل سنبلة 100 حبة والله يضاعف لمن يشاء والله واسع عليم. So, but then in this hadith, إلا الصيام فإنه لي, because it is a form of worship that it is bound to be discreet. It's not going to be known. You would see people praying, and you would know this. You see people performing circumambulate the Kaaba. You see it. They walk between the Safa and Marwa, and you see it. They go to Arafah, and you see it. You might see people giving charity, but you don't see fasting. People might say, "I am fasting." Okay, they might say during Ramadan. You don't ask this. You're not supposed to really. Because suppose that somebody is cannot fast, and it might hurt them Just don't ask whether they are fasting or not. A woman who has menstruation, okay, you don't ask directly. So it is discreet, and this is why it is rewarded abundantly. And the وأنا أجزي به, from reading Imam Al-Ghazali in Ihya Ulum, this is where where all this comes, because it's a summary of what we have in Ihya Ulum. You read Ihya Ulum and you get the impression, or the image rather, from the writings of Imam Al-Ghazali, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that reward, وأنا أجزي به, Imam Al-Ghazali says, يجازف جزافا, like it, يصب, in a sense, يصب صبا, الحسنات تصب صبا, almost like the image of a waterfall. And I have said this before more than once, whether in Arabic or, of course, it's in Arabic, because we read Al-Ghazali. But that's the impression, that's the image I get. And in a hadith mursal, like it stops with the Sahabi. The Prophet ﷺ said, everything has a gate, and the gate of worship is fasting. Of course, fasting is important. So this is not really a hadith per se, but fasting does help. If one fasts, then the other desires are controlled. Like in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, addressing the youngsters, I'm talking about marriage age, men who reach that age, and the Prophet ﷺ encouraged them to get married. يا معشر الشباب الصالح منكم الباءة فليتزوج. For those who cannot afford to get married, ومن لم يستطع فعليه بالصوم فإنه له وجاء. Those who cannot afford to get married, then they should resort to fasting, because that's really a form of protection. It's for protection because it really breaks the desire, it controls the desire. Fasting is singled out with these distinctions on account of two matters. The first of them is that it is essentially an act of abstention. الصوم الامتناع. Sayyida Maryam alayhi salam, when she went home with baby Jesus Christ, peace upon him, and when they saw her with the baby, they knew that that's her baby, and this is why they asked about the whereabouts of, how come, especially for a woman who's really who is known to be devout, who isolates herself from the rest of society, and to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reminding her that her father was not a bad person. ما كان أبوكم امرأ سوء وما كانت أمكم بغية, and your mother was not a bad woman. With the direct implication, then she pointed to him. She pointed to Jesus Christ upon him. I mean, after saying, إني نذرت للرحمن صوما فلن أكلم اليوم إنسيا. إني نذرت للرحمن صوما, this psalm here, using the word psalm, but what it means is abstinence, abstaining from talk. So you could abstain, psalm. So the first of them is that it is essentially an act of abstention, which is practiced secretly, discreetly, secretly. No one is aware of it other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, unlike prayers, zakah, and other forms of worship. The second is that it is a victory over Allah's enemy, and indeed Satan is the enemy. In fact, Satan is the only enemy in the absolute sense, meaning that he will never be your friend in that sense, because other enemies, they might they could change basically course. They could in the past, Sayyidina Khalid bin al-Walid radiyallahu anhu, he led the army of the mushrikeen, of the Meccans, the Meccan idol worshippers in the Battle of Uhud. So he was on the other side, and subhanallah, he became a Muslim, and he led the Muslims to victory and many times. Subhanallah. I don't want to go into much details about this, but suffice it to say that in the absolute sense, it's a Satan. Because we know even nowadays we have examples of people who were Islamophobes per excellence, and then they changed course and they became Muslims. Amazing stories. Satan is the enemy. He does not grow strong except by means of desires, and hunger breaks all the desires that are the tool of Satan. For this reason, Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, "Verily, Satan flows through the son of Adam like the flow of blood. So tighten the paths of Satan with hunger." Of course, the physical aspect is known, the biological aspect is known, and we have, of course, the language is allegorical, metaphorical. It is also the secret of his sallallahu alaihi wasallam statement: when Ramadan arrives, the gates of paradise are opened, the gates of hell are closed, devils are shackled, and the announcer calls, "O seeker of good, come forth, O seeker of evil, desist." So those extra Satans, the devils who roam all over the place, will be shackled. There's a big relief, during Ramadan, and there's a big relief really for anyone who's fasting in Ramadan or other than Ramadan. There's a big relief for the worshipper. But once really Ramadan arrives, it's a season for all good things considered. People, they have the energy to pray Taraweeh, and I love it here in Jerusalem. If we talk about Ramadan in Jerusalem, and I would consider it really an invitation. Literally, I would like people to think about spending time in Jerusalem at Al-Aqsa Mosque during Ramadan, especially the last 10 nights, days and nights for i'tikaf. You can do it during other days as well, of course. It's very beautiful. You have the energy to do Taraweeh. Sometimes you talk about the same family, 3 generations. Every member of the family, they go together to Al-Aqsa Mosque. Extremely beautiful. The thousands upon thousands of Muslims flocking to Al-Aqsa Mosque. It is refreshing, and please do remember that when the Prophet ﷺ lost his 2 main supporters from within the family, Lady Khadija anha and his uncle Abu Talib, it was called the Year of Sadness, and he was brought to in that journey at night journey, if you will, from Mecca to Jerusalem, from the noble sanctuary to Al-Aqsa Mosque, from Al-Masjid Haram, Al-Masjid Aqsa, as if, and it is as if Jerusalem is a place where you can refresh, heal, get energized. And people who come to Jerusalem, they attest to such a spirit. People come time and again. I've seen people, I know people who come from the United States time and again with the family. They go back home to the United States, and they can hardly wait to visit again. Subhanallah. Know that fasting is relative to its amount at three levels, and relative to its secrets at three levels. As for the levels relative to its amount, the least of them is fasting limited to the month of Ramadan, and the highest of them is the fast of the highest quantitatively is that if that's what you talk about, the highest um, fasting in terms of the number of days that you could fast while still adhering to the Sunnah, and that's very important. Is the fast of Dawood alayhi salam, which is that you fast for a day and break your fast the next day, other than Ramadan, of course. It is reported, and we have, of course, certain days that you would fast in a row. Say the three days, we call them the three white days in the middle of the lunar month. These are usually people fast these days in a row. It is reported in a rigorously authenticated Sahih hadith that this is better than fasting all the time. Of course, if you follow the Sunnah, it's always better than fasting all the time. And it's muttafaq alayh, of course, narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. And that is the best fast. وأنه أفضل الصيام. Same متفق عليه. It's the same narrator, the same hadith Abdullah bin Amr رضي الله عنه. And the secret is that for a person who fasts all the time, fasting becomes normal. Thus, he does not feel its breaking impact within himself, or clarity in his heart, or weakness in his desires. Truly, the self is only affected by what is thrust upon it. And we need to really pay attention. So again, its secret is that for a person who fasts all the time, fasting becomes normal. Normal. And here, normalization is a problem. Here, normalization is a problem. And we have the normalization. Usually in politics, we speak about تطبيع. But then really here we speak about the notion of ilf. يألف. You normalize with the presence of something. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم يألف. That the Muslim it's easy to get acquainted and to feel comfortable with the presence here. But at any rate, its secret is that For a person who will fast all the time, fasting becomes normal, thus, he does not feel its breaking impact within himself, or clarity in his heart, or weakness in his desire. Truly, the self is only affected by what is thrust upon it, not by what is conditioned to it. In Arabic, فإن النفس تتأثر بما يرد عليها لا بما مرنت عليه. And uh, in nafs, really, they should have translated this into the soul. Okay? The ruh is the spirit, and the nafs is the soul. Truly, the self, the soul, this is not far fetched, for indeed, physicians also prescribe the habitual consumption of medicine. They say that anyone who does so habitually will not benefit from it if he gets sick. We know this with antibiotics today because his body is accustomed to it and therefore not affected by it. Know also that medicine of hearts is very much like the medicine of bodies. This is the secret of the statement of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Abdullah bin Amr radiyallahu anhu when he was asking about fasting. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Fast a day and break your fast another day." He replied, "I can do better." And in fact, it should not say in English. So it says here to Abdullah bin Amr when he was asked about fasting. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Fast a day and break your fast another day." Amr replied, "You don't do that because in English you might use the family name, but it's not really a family name. Okay." Uh, he is Abdullah, son of Amr, and she simply should use the either Abdullah bin Amr, or you might say Abdullah, but you don't use Amr because that's really his father. So Abdullah bin Amr replied, "I can do better than that." So he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "There is nothing better than that. Always the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best." لا أفضل من ذلك. Anything that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم لا أفضل من ذلك as his sunnah. For the same reason, it was said to Allah's Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, "So and so fast all the time." He said, "He has not fasted, nor has he broken his fast." This is like when Aisha radiallahu anha said to a man who would recite the Quran, mumbling, "This person has not recited the Quran, nor has he been silent." Mumbling, it brings, you know, بهذرنة. Okay, and I got the impression that that hadrama is really rather than mumbling is reading so fast that becomes really unintelligible. So he and it could be used for other contexts as well, other than reading, even walking fast. But here, for us, suffice it to know that he does not really understand, but also people who are listening to him do not understand because of the nature of his recitation. That's hadrama. Mumbling is one could one could basically think of mumbling. No, it is really it's different because mumbling you are really kind of muffling your voice. Talk as if one is talking to oneself. And they do say it's borrowed freely from Italian, speak sottovoce, below the normative tone and strength and clarity. So this person has not recited the Quran, nor has he been silent. As for the middle level, relative to the amount of fasting, it is that you fast for a third of the time. Whenever you fast Monday and Thursday, along with the month of Ramadan, you will have fasted 4 months and 4 days out of the year, which is in excess of a third. However, it is impossible to avoid breaking, that is, it means not fasting, one of the days of Tashriq. So it could be the 11th or the 12th of the or 13th of the Hijjah, in which case the excess will be 3 days. It is also conceivable that one breaks the two Eid days, making 3 days, in which case the excess would be of one day. Think about the calculation, and you will know that this is the case. Your fasting should not be less than this amount, for indeed it is easy on the self. Okay, let's see the Arabic. خفيف على النفس, again, um, the soul rather than the self. And its reward is abundant. As for the levels of its secrets, they are three. The lowest of them is for a person to limit abandonment to food items without his limbs abandoning foul deeds. That is the fast of general people, صوم العموم, and it brings them contentment in name only. Okay. Uh, Abandonment to food items, food, drink, and intimate relationship. That's also the uh, because the Arabic is الكف عن المفترات. المفترات والمفطرات. Okay, it's it's not equal to food items. المفطر, that would nullify your fasting. Food, drink, and also intimate relationship. And that's the صوم العموم. In general, people. Okay, the second is that you add to this abstention of the limbs. Thus, you guard the tongue from backbiting, the eye from looking uh, to that which is prohibited, really. Uh, and likewise, the rest of the body parts. Where the tongue abstains from backbiting, the ears abstain from listening to backbiting. Imam Al-Ghazali mentions 20 ills of the tongue. There was an Andalusian scholar who listed almost 100 ills of the tongue. And this is why when the Prophet ﷺ said, "Amsik alayka hada," hold on to your tongue in the sense of control it. And then the question was, are we held accountable for what we say? And then the Prophet ﷺ responded, is it not the fact that people will be thrown on their faces, or in a different tradition, on their noses, on the day judgment, except as they harvest the fruit of their tongues? So every limb, every part of your body that is capable of doing that which is prohibited, once it abstains, then this is part of the second level. In addition to the second level, you add to this, you add to the above, you add to the abstain the when to fasting, to abstaining from food, drink, and intimate relationship. You add the abstinence of the limbs, of the body parts. This is the fast of the elite. Imam Al-Ghazali says, Sawm al-Khusus. The third is that you add to this, or to that, the preservation of the heart from thoughts and whisperings, limiting it to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the fast of the elite of the elite, Khusus al-Khusus. Sawm Khusus al-Khusus, which is the perfect fast, when the heart abstains from anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Finally, fasting has a seal by which it is completed. It is that a person breaks fast with undoubtedly permissible food and does not eat excessively, compensating for what he missed in the morning by combining two meals at once. You don't make up. That's the whole story. Otherwise, what's the use? So Imam Ghazali says it is that a person breaks fast with undoubtedly permissible food and does not eat excessively, compensating for what he missed in the morning by combining two meals at once. Doing so will cause his gut to become heavy and strengthen his desire, whereby the secret of fasting and its benefit is nullified. This leads to laziness with the night, vigil prayer, tahajjud during Ramadan. We speak about Taraweeh, and perhaps him not waking up before the morning prayer. So he will miss the morning prayer, all of which is a great loss that perhaps the benefit of fasting cannot balance out. Thus, we finish the principle of the third principle, the 13th, on fasting. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll read about pilgrimage, about Hajj. And you will find out, inshallah, that we talk about the story of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and his family. And we have, it's extremely beautiful when we speak about, since you talk about Hajj, let me ask you the question for tomorrow. Today, I'm asking it for tomorrow. Who was to be sacrificed? Was it Sayyidina Ismail or Sayyidina Ishaq alayhim as-salam? And do you know, if you pick one or the other, do you have a hadith or a verse from the Quran, or more than one verse, in fact, from the Quran about who was the child to be sacrificed? Until tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.